What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another breakdown video. So we're gonna break down the trade that we took today with gold. We end up taking two trades. Both of them played out amazing. I'm gonna show you guys the both setups that we took. We took a buy position and we also took a sell position. So let's go first into the Telegram. Here in the Telegram, you guys can see the first buy position that we took. So we took the first position at 856. This was the before chart, and as you guys can see, this right here is the after chart. So we end up taking some buy position. The entry was at 38.12. Our stop loss was placed underneath these entire lows over here. We end up securing every single take profit. As you guys can see, every single TP was hit. We also called out a second trade, which was a sell limit. So you guys can see sending a second signal right over here, which is going to be a high risk. So I'm obviously going to explain to you guys all of these entire trade. But we took a sell limit. This was at 38.26, 38.28. This was also sent out at 9:31 in the morning. So we took a two position, right? Obviously, both of these trades over here was risked perfectly. With the first trade, I did end up risking 1% of my account. And the second trade over here, since it was going to be a high risk, and the second trade, this position over here, I did risk over, I believe it was 0.70%, 0.7% is what I risked. Under the 1%, was not risking a little bit lower than 0.5. I was already pretty much comfortable with the entire profit that we've been collecting the past couple of days with gold. So I did risk a little bit lower, which was 0.7, but nothing too crazy. This trade over here as well, we end up hitting every single take profit. So I'd end up closing out majority of my profit at take profit 3, which was at these exact structure right over here. So if we go here into a lower time frame, the sell position that we took was from this wick right over here. I end up securing majority of my profit whenever price action came back towards the structure. What I'm going to explain to you guys why specifically did I close out my position from right there. But this was the position. We end up hitting take profit 3. Our runner got stopped out of break even. But as you guys can see, this over here was the exact setup that we took on the MT4 or the MT5 as well. So on the, this was another trade that we had opened up, but let me go back into the buy position. So right over here, the buy position, this is where I told everyone, this was at 12:58 p.m. So almost at 1 o'clock already. This is where I told everyone I'm taking full take profit here at 200 pips at a 1 to 2.5 risk to reward, which was at these exact highs right over here. If we would have continued holding this position, it would have definitely hit our take profit by now. Yeah, so like right now, it would have hit our final TP for almost a 1 to 3 risk to reward. But I was cool with the profit. I just didn't like how price action was just continuing rejecting and was ranging towards the end of the New York session. So obviously the goal here is just to secure your profit, right? Tomorrow's another day. We're going to continue catching all of these trades. But let's start with the breakdown. We're going to start off first with the buy position that we took. So the buy position that we took was at 8:50, well, almost at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we took a buy position at 38.12. So this trade was very simple. If we start off from a weekly structure, so we do a top-down analysis, right? You guys can obviously see it's very, very simple. It's not much to do in here. You guys look at the weekly, we are bullish. We look at the daily time frame, we are bullish. We look at the 4-hour time frame, we are bullish, right? So obviously top of the head or top of the bat, we already know that the market overall is bullish, right? So our job as a trader, right, is obviously to be trading with the trend. So whenever we're understanding what type of market we are, obviously you guys got to look at it from a higher time frame perspective. So our goal is to just simply trade with the trend. So the overall buys for today was a buy position, right? So what I like to do all the time is obviously mark out the weekly highs, the weekly lows, the previous week highs, and the previous week lows, right? Also with the daily structure. But today's is Monday, since the market open, I'm just marking up on the previous structures. Now, I like to go down into lower time frame and just start looking for context clue, right? Which is going to be the more confirmation, the more confluence showing us that, hey, you know, price action can still continue pushing higher, right? So very quick, this was the case study that I did last night before the market opened this morning. So last night I just pretty much reviewed, this was during the London session, pretty much reviewed the entire push towards the upside, right? So we look over here, this was Friday trade that we took, which was a buy position, played out beautiful at a 1 to 3 risk to reward. Now, notice over here, once price action, if we noticed last week price action, we noticed that price obviously was heading towards the downside, and then we kind of ranged it between a higher time frame structure. But on Friday, we finally continued pushing the market even higher. So again, we're still in a very strong bullish market condition. So price action respected these demands right over here. And then we finally got the initial push towards the upside, which is still continuing the entire trend. Now, this push over here, if we look towards the left side, obviously we do have some supply zones right over here where obviously seller were taking action the entire week of last week. So we took sells from here. We also took sells from right over here and right over here as well. On Friday, we pretty much broke out of this entire broken structure, which is all of this entire key level, which is marked up at the 37.64, pretty much retracing to retest this entire broken structure. On Sunday, which was yesterday, this was the market open. notice how the market opened. We pretty much respected this entire zone. So again, we have these lows, we have this high, these higher lows, and then boom, the market continued pushing even higher. We take a look over here. This was last week, previous week highs, which was on Tuesday, which is pretty much the initial high that we created from last week. We finally broke out of it as well. This over here was another confirmation. So we go down here under a 15-minute time frame. You guys can see also that price broke above. We've got the retest, simple break and retest, and continue pushing the market even higher. Now, this was just pretty much initial case study, nothing too very much serious, but this is where the serious stuff starts coming in. If we take a look here at the 15-minute time frame, we're pretty much trading from zone to zone, right? So this is over here, the New York or the London session highs, the Asian session highs as well over here, the London session lows. So we have the highs, which is going to be marked up by the 38.19, and then we also have the lows over here, which is going to be set up around the 38.06. Now, during the pre-New York session open, we did see that the London session over here managed to create a very strong area of support, which is going to be right over here at the 38.06. Obviously, with price action trading in a bullish trend, the idea here will be simply waiting for price action to break above these highs over here to actually continue pushing the market even higher. So, what do we notice over here? In today's setup, all we simply traded was a break and retest and the retest of a fair value gap. Well, the fair value gap right over here is going to be this 15-minute candle from this closure over here towards these closure right over here. As well, this can be also a lower time frame demand zone. So, we did notice that London session respected this entire support right over here, basic knowledge, right? The idea whenever price session breaks above a high right over here, the idea is obviously waiting for price session to give us a pullback to retest, and if it maintains itself above it, then we're looking for the buy position. Now, we took a very aggressive entry due to the fact that obviously the setups that we like to look for is always above the areas of interest. Now, since we did have this very valid 15-minute bullish fair value gap right over here, and we did see that price session has respected it, which was these zones right over here. This was the first confirmation for me. Whenever price session had the bounce from that gap from these zones over here. The only thing that I was waiting for at this entry over here was simply a candle closure, which would simply be above the 38.20. But then notice how price action started pushing even lower. So if we go back here towards the 15-minute time frame, we did notice that price action was just simply respecting off this entire fair value gap right over here. So the fair value gap is going to be set from the 38.10 all the way to the 38.15. So those were my two areas of interest for the buy position this morning. So these two 15-minute candles over here, we did see that price action was perfectly respecting it. So we were just simply bouncing off from it. All we were waiting for was just for a 5-minute candle closure above it, which in this case was this bullish candle right over here. So this was the first 15-minute candle. This was the second one. And then the third one is pretty much where we entered. They closed bullish. This is exactly our entry at the 38.12. This is where I told everyone here in the Telegram, hey, we're buying the market, 38.12. We took that very nice buy position. Our take profit was overall going to be at a 1-3, which was set at the 38.36. But again, since I told you guys that price action was just ranging over here, the goal is just to simply take away the profits, right? So it was a very simple trade. It was considered, I wouldn't really say high risk due to the fact that we're still bullish. The only thing that I would consider was a very aggressive entry due to the fact that, again, we went back inside this ranges. So this range over here was just simply ranging from 1 point to a B point to A point to B point. So again, if the idea will be if price action would have come back towards these zones, we might see the price action do the same thing. So if we would have entered over here, let's say the price action went the other direction, it would have taken us out of stop loss, and then price action would have been ranging from here to here. That's the only reason why I would say aggressive entry, but the risk to reward was obviously perfect. Our stop loss was placed perfect, which was underneath all of these entire lows, which was a clean stop loss. And again, the take profit was a 1-3, but we end up closing out at these highs over here. Now, if we take a look at the sell position was very simple. Again, it was a very high risk trade. Like I told everyone over here, I'm going to be sending out a second signal looking for a high risk sell limit. Now, the high risk was due to the fact that, again, we're trading against the trend. The trend overall in every single time frame, we are very much bullish. Now, the only thing that I liked was pretty much how price action over here. So it's technically, think about it as whatever goes up has to come down, whatever comes down has to come up, right? So it's pretty much very simple. Just think about it like in that way. In this case over here, but don't think about it like obviously in every single setup. It's not going to be 100%, right? Just think about it like a scenario like that. So in this case over here, since price action broke above all of these entire London highs, right? If we look at it from a 30-minute candle perspective, or let's go into an actual 4-hour time frame. If we look at it from a 4-hour time frame, notice how we broke above all of these entire London highs and closed back below it with a very nice H4 or 4-hour candle wick rejection towards the upside. and we closed back underneath these highs over here, which is already showing us that there's possible sellers trying to step into the market. And again, since price action has been very much overall bearish or bullish, obviously we need that little type of retracement, right? So that was the idea of today. So it's mostly like a counter trend trade sell position, right? But above these zones over here, which would make it a little bit more risky. Now, if I was looking for a perfect sell position, obviously I would like to see price action taking underneath all of these entire lows over here and start building bearish price action, which would have been a little bit even high probability. But since we got that nice 4-hour candle rejection towards the upside, closing underneath, and we got this very nice 1-hour bearish engulfing candle closing underneath this entire structure right over here, all we simply got to do is just go back into the 5-minute time frame, and we got to start looking for those supply zone or a fair value gap, a bearish fair value gap. So in this case, this was the idea of the zone, which was set at the 38. Our entry was at 38.26, and then our second entry was going to be at the 38.28, which was technically trading around these ranges over here. So our first trade got active, and then our second entry got active, and then we end up hitting every single take profit. Right over here is exactly where I end up closing out my position. Like majority of the profit is where I end up closing now, due to the fact that price action has now broken above these zones right over here. So these zones over here was the reason why obviously I protected my capital, because again, that's over here we continue holding is going to be considered as greedy, since again we're trading against the trend. So first of all, we're not supposed to be doing that, technically that entire move over here. We're supposed to be respecting the trend line, right? Or pretty much respecting the trend. But since price action has came back over here and we have kind of see already multiple rejections, this is exactly where I secured majority of my profits, moving my stop loss to break even, leaving the buy position open, which I end up closing out more profits in there. So it's a very simple trade. So we go back towards the buy. It was just simply buying off this fair value gap from a 15-minute time frame, going along with the trend. If we're looking for the sell position, it was just simply the take above all of these entire London highs over here, which another way to say will be a liquidity sweep. We go here to the 4-hour time frame. The 4-hour time frame did close underneath these zones over here, leaving a very nice gap towards the upside. 1-hour time frame, we closed a bearish fair value gap, my bad. We closed a bearish engulfing candle, closing back underneath these entire highs over here, which is also known as the London highs, or an area of resistance. All we waited for was just for the pullback to retest these entire fair value gap, as well the 5-minute supply zone, which is between these two zones. Perfectly reacted it. This was the sell limit. Perfectly got active, and we end up hitting every single take profit. Again, I explained to you guys, this is exactly where I end up closing out majority, just simply because price action was maintaining itself above it, right? So again, if we maintain above these resistance, this over here is going to be used as support, where buyers are going to continue buying the market towards the upside, and that's exactly what price action did. If I would have done the opposite and just be greedy, not close out my profit over here, I would have not made any profit. So what was the whole point of taking the sell position, right? So that was pretty much the idea, right, of having that mindset. Like, what would be the whole position of not taking profit here if price action is going to continue pushing higher, right? So it was just pretty much in and out trade. So those were the two positions that I took today. It was very nice, very good start to the week. This position over here, we end up closing out at 1 to 2.5 risk to reward, and the sell position we end up closing out around a 1 to 1 risk to reward. So beautiful start to the